What was Ford like?
He was a character is what he was like. He was a real character.
Mm-hmm.
You know, had a patch on his eye. He was great. I mean, I really liked him. But he was working with John Wayne, and he used to just cuss him up and down all day long. He would say, "Come on, Duke. Come on, Duke. When are you gonna start acting?"
And the South, Russ Tamblyn. And the famous of history, John Wayne as General William Tecumseh Sherman. Henry Morgan as General Ulysses S. Grant.
Hi, I'm Rob Word. Welcome to A Word on Westerns. We love Westerns here, and I know you do too. That's why you tuned in. Well, I have a special treat for you today because one of the legends in the industry. He started when he was as tiny as Tom Thumb.
That was one of my small parts.
Oh, it's Russ Tamblyn. He's here in my living room. Hey, Russ. That was you. I love that movie. I saw it when I was a kid.
Well, tooty doody doody.
Who wrote that song?
Peggy Lee.
She just wrote it for you?
She wrote the song for me, yeah. But that's usually the way it is. I mean, I've done other musicals and stuff, and the songwriters are never...
You never get a chance to hang with them. Well, we'll get to that later, but right now I want to get to how you first tumbled your way into the business.
Actually, I didn't. I mean, I was a child actor, and I didn't tumble really until Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Mm-hmm. And that was when I was about 18 is when I did that, and I've been working since we worked for Cecil B. DeMille and SAMSON and DELILAH. So tumbling came later. I mean, I actually did tumbling, but I didn't do it in movies.
Mm-hmm. I understand that Lloyd Bridges was a big part of recognizing your talent early on.
Well, he was the first one that I worked for, that I made money for actually. I did a play that he directed, and so I got paid like $35 a week.
How old were you then?
I think I was about 9, 10.
That's a pretty good paycheck then for a 9 or 10-year-old kid.
Well, it was pretty good at that time because it was, a long time ago. It was fun working for him. Well, it was a fun play.
Well, he recognized talent, that's for sure.
Yeah, I guess so. He recognized me.
Well, let's talk about Cecil B. DeMille for a minute, because he, again, a legendary silent movie director who did epic movies. How did he treat actors?
He treated me kind of badly, in a way. I had one episode with him when I had to run up to, the movie was Samson and Delilah, and Samson gets caught, and I had to run up to him in this scene and grab him and say, "I've got my slingshot on my head. We can fight our way out of here." And and he says, "No." So we did the scene, and and I did it. And DeMille came in and said, "Russ, don't call me Rusty." Actually, he says, "Don't when you put your hand up to point to your slingshot," which I wore around my head, "don't block your face, because where the camera was, said don't touch it back here so we can see your face." So we did it again, and there was probably like hundreds and hundreds of extras, all in the stands and everything, and we did it again, and I was just kind of nervous, and I was only like 10 years old, I think. So I did it, and I did it the same thing again, and he came in and he grabbed my hand. And he said, I said, "Put your hand here, not here, but here. Put it back here so we can see your face. We want to see it. We can't see your face." And he was banging my head with my hand.
That's terrifying.
Oh, it was horrible. And also when he spoke, there were two guys that went around with DeMille all the time. One had a microphone, and one had a chair. And DeMille would walk around and he would just sit down, and the chair better be there. The guy was, and then the other guy had a microphone, and anytime he opened his mouth to speak, he would hold the microphone. So it went all over the sound stage there when he was bawling me out, and it was kind of embarrassing, and I started to cry. You know, it was kind of scary. So that was my experience that I remembered well with DeMille.
Well, that's a nightmare.
Yeah, but, you know, I guess I could say, well, I got bawled out by Cecil B. DeMille.
Did he wear those jodhpurs and the boots?
Yeah, he did. Oh, yeah, and he had a riding crop that he walked around with.
We're lucky he didn't say, right there is your slingshot.
Yeah. Glad he didn't do that.
Well, the first Western you did that I have in your credits is you played McDonald Carey as a youngster, and you were involved in a robbery, Cave of Outlaws.
Yeah, I think that was my first Western.
Did you see a lot of films as a kid with cowboy stars?
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm like most kids, I think. I loved Westerns and did them, and I loved horses. I lived in North Hollywood, and the kid behind me, I never had a horse, but the kid behind me had one, and he had a couple of horses, and I used to go riding there all the time. And I even went in when a rodeo came to town one time, I rode the horse there and got a job. I didn't get paid, but got a job of riding a horse, doing a trick ride. I used to be able to hang onto the mane of the horse and go from one side to the other side of the horse. That was part of my acrobatics.
Wow.
So I guess you could say I acrobated my way into...
Yes, I would say so. I don't know if you knew Dickie Jones. He was a young stuntman. He'd been the voice of Pinocchio, but he also did a TV series with Jock Mahoney, one of the all-time great stuntmen, called The Range Rider. Yeah. And he does jumping back and forth on the horse that you were talking about. That's what he did in the opening credits, and he just had such a physical prowess. So like you did. So when you were signed by MGM and they put you in this musical, 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, you guys abduct 7 women and take them up into the mountains to marry them. It's a musical and a dance film.
Yeah.
So were you a dancer?
No, I wasn't supposed to dance in it. Michael Kidd, who was the choreographer, he wanted all the brothers to be dancers, with the exception of Howard Keel. But the other 6 brothers, he wanted great dancers. Mm-hmm. And MGM said, you know what, Michael, we have actors that are under contract here, so you're going to have to use a couple of actors that are under contract. I was one of the actors, and the other one was Jeff Richards, was a baseball player, and he didn't even like dancers. He thought they were all sissies. But then one day we went over to see the other dancers. They were in rehearsal. They had already started. And then he became friendly with all of them and realized that they weren't all sissies.
No, I mean, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, especially in 7 Brides. I mean, they were all straight and fun.
And in great shape, too. The tumbling that you did was so different for most dances that we would see in movies. It's like, whoa, this is unusual.
First of all, it's hard to explain because it was, these backwoodsmen who all lived up in the hills and everything. I had to introduce it to one time when it came out on the stage. I said, if you can imagine somebody coming to MGM, the studio, says, listen, I got a great idea for a movie. It's based on the rape of the Sabon women, and that's pretty funny. I got a big laugh out of that from that. It's based on the rape of that. I said, oh, and the studio said, okay, so far that sounds good. So it's seven brothers. So who are you going to get to play the brothers? And he says, well, I figured we'd get the ballet dancers to play these backwoodsmen, you know, who all are fighting each other. But it was really Michael Kidd, the choreographer, who that was the big part of the film.
And he's the one who made the selections for the dancers, except for the two of you then.
Yeah, Michael Kidd. And then the studio got the...
They needed somebody on the marquee.
Well, no, they just needed somebody that they were paying who was under contract.
Of course, that's the big studio system, right? And at that time, though, wasn't the studio system sort of ending at that time? I mean, it was a big time for MGM musicals.
It was close. It lasted a little longer than that. I did a musical after that, Hit the Deck. I did. I played opposite
with Debbie
Reynolds.
Yeah. And Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, I know simultaneously, Brigadoon was being shot with Gene Kelly, and the studio was putting everything behind Brigadoon. They thought, here's the big film, and this other one is just going to be okay.
Yeah, it's true.
And you tricked them. It was a big, big hit.
Yeah, the whole movie surprised the studio, I think.
It's joyous, though. I saw it when, I guess it was on a reissue, on a double bill with a Bowery Boys movie. And I wanted to see the Bowery Boys movie, and then this one came on, and I went, and then I loved it. It was wonderful. It just, you feel so good for seeing it, and the songs are memorable.
Yeah, the songs were great, and it was just a good movie, but it was really mainly noted for its dancing numbers.
What I noticed even when I saw it the first time was, you know, it's like this great outdoors film where these guys are going to be, and it seemed like almost the whole thing was shot on a soundstage. And as a kid, I noticed that, because in Westerns, I would see films, boy, I love these great locations, Monument Valley or Utah or wherever you're going, and then they would be on a soundstage, because I guess that's the way studios, that was the process back then. They'd send a second unit out for exteriors, and then the dialogue and most scenes would be on a soundstage. And in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, you guys, it was a great big set. It was nice, but it was not outdoors.
That's right. I mean, it was shot at the studio, and they had a second unit to go someplace, I guess, to shoot the outdoor stuff. But it was mainly just shot in the studio.
When it started, did they start saying, well, we're going to trim this budget a little bit more, because Brigadoon was seemingly going?
I don't know what they said. I mean, you know, they say, hey, Russ, listen.
Yeah, let us discuss this with you. No.
I guess when I was dancing is what I really remember. And I was kind of ahead of the game in a way. It was really interesting. You know, in Seven Brides, there was one number, for instance, called Goin' Courtin', which Janie Powell was teaching us how to dance. You know, and then one of the lines in the song was "Goin' dancin', to a fan," and then one of the brothers said "Goin' dancin'," and so then we did a dance, and we were supposed to be just learning how to dance, and I was the only one that could do that. It looked like it, because suddenly Matt Maddox and Jacques Dubois from the New York City Ballet were all hitting the position right away, and so Michael Kidd had to either put me in front, you know, or in the back, and he put me in front because I looked like I was learning how to dance.
Well, that's nice. That's nice.
And then there was another one at the end of the number. In fact, I said, "Keep your dancing," and I did a crazy, just jumped around dancing, which by the time the movie ended, I had been doing a lot of dancing. Michael Kidd wanted me to.
He kept giving you more and more things to do.
More and more, exactly.
How about Jeff Richards?
Jeff hated dancing. He was a baseball player, you know, so he hated dancing.
His bride was Julie Newmar, who's a good dancer.
Yeah, But if you watch it again, if you watch the movie, you'll see he'd never danced. I think he moved in and out a little bit. And
Michael Kidd was moving you to the front and Jeff to the back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about another Western, and it's a wonderful comedy Western with Robert Taylor, Eleanor Powell, and Victor McLaglen plays your father, Many Rivers to Cross. That is a fun film where he's a hunter, a trapper who's a bachelor, doesn't want to get married. She's after him. This has some cute stuff in that movie. What do you remember about Big Victor McLaglen?
I remember that he was very famous, Victor McLaglen, and it was great to work with him. But I don't remember much about the movie. I think I only worked a day.
Really?
1 day or 2 days in it. And I never saw it.
And well, Jim Arness, I'll tell you then, Jim Arness, who was later Matt Dillon, that you did work with on Gunsmoke, was one of the characters in that film too.
I didn't know
an early
that.
part for him. You worked again with Robert Taylor in a wonderful movie called The Last Hunt that was on location. I saw that in the theaters, also big widescreen color, and Robert Taylor is a bad guy.
Yeah, and he didn't do many bad guy
No, but
parts.
he was great in this.
I'm fed up on killing. Seems like that's all I've ever known since I was a kid. Killing one kind or another.
There ain't nothing wrong with that. Killing's natural.
Not to me, it ain't.
Yeah, it was, and I had a great time doing it. Unfortunately, the original actress that played the part of the Indian and it was Anne Bancroft.
Oh.
And
you got Debra Paget instead.
Well, because she got because Annie got hurt. They were shooting. We were in South Dakota, and we did a lot of scenes together. And Anne Bancroft. You can even see her in some of the scenes.
Oh, really?
Where she's way in the back, and then they did a close-up of
Debra Paget.
Later.
Well, Annie played a lot of Native American in an Audie Murphy movie. She's won, and probably 5 or 6 times, and it took her a while to break out of that.
She was great to work with. But she got hurt. They were shooting the scene where she's riding off into the sunset with Stewart Granger, and I guess the horse started to go into a gallop, and she went up and came down and landed on the horn of the saddle, and really hurt herself badly. And so when they had to take her to the hospital, and she was in the hospital for a couple of weeks. They had to replace her, and that's when they.
And then they reshot all those scenes
again. It's too bad because she was a much better actress.
A great actress, in so many different roles too. But I'm sure she was happy to stop playing those Indian princesses, though. Somebody else who was in that movie who I just think is a fabulous actor too, Lloyd Nolan. He played a drunken trapper with missing one leg. Missing one leg.
Yeah.
Just solid.
You see, Charlie don't like himself so much, so he don't like the engine any better. Seems fair enough, don't it, son?
Yeah, and I worked with him in another movie too. We shared a room. He used to drink a lot. He was
that was his character. Was he typecast in that movie?
He must have been.
Well, a lot of those guys from the 30s and 40s, that's what they did. I know you worked with John Wayne in How the West Was Won.
Yeah.
Which, the one segment that John Ford directed. How amazing is that? What was Ford like?
He was a character is what he was like. He was a real character. He had a patch on his eye. He was great. I mean, I really liked him, but he was certainly eccentric. The one thing he used to do is he had a handkerchief that he used to keep in his hand all the time, and he would come in and wipe your makeup, with the same
then he'd
one.
Stick it in his mouth.
I was wondering if he blew his nose too.
Oh, stop. He may have.
But I knew that I was working with the legend, he was.
Well, he mistreated so many people, but they all came back to work with him again because their performances were so good.
Yeah.
Did he give you much guidance?
I don't remember too much guidance. I didn't have a lot to do in that movie.
You're just hiding behind that rock. And
With George Papard,
right.
we had a little scene.
He stops you from killing John Wayne, right?
Yeah.
And the South, Russ Tamblyn. And the famous of history, John Wayne as General William Tecumseh Sherman. Henry Morgan as General Ulysses S. Grant.
It's like a big
I didn't work in the scene with him. I mean, I was sort of away from it, but he was working with John Wayne, and he used to just cuss him up and down all day long for a really long time. He would say, "Come on, Duke. Come on, Duke. When are you gonna start acting?"
Well, I guess he did that all the time, and Duke took it.
Yeah, I was surprised because I thought I was the only one that saw that. But then I read later too that he was the only one that could talk to John Wayne that way.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to talk to Duke like that.
No.
And I heard you on Audible with your book reading all of these wonderful stories. I mean, what a life that you've led. That, thank God you're still with us after all that.
That was hard to do, the audiobook. I was surprised.
I'll bet it took a long time.
Well, it took a while. How long did it take? 4 or 5 days?
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
6 weeks, yeah.
Intermittent days, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it. That's a long book.
It took a while to do, mainly because, in conversations when you're doing an interview, like if I'm talking to you, now I'm saying, like if I'm talking to you, they say, "Oh, no, we got to do it again, cut the like out, and just read it like it is."
Yeah.
So it was pretty weird.
But it's good, and you did a great job at it. It's like
thank you.
You're being there. It's like you're being there, right? Just like this, I'm having a fantasy of the story.
Yeah. Yeah, and I noticed that a lot of actors and actresses do an audio version of their book.
I think it's a great benefit. I listen to it as I'm hiking in the morning. I go for about 45 minutes every day, and so I was whizzing through your book. Of course, I had it on a faster speed, so you're talking a little faster. Did you know you could do that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I do know that you could do it, but I haven't heard it.
Yeah, well, you did a fine job with that,
thank
too.
you.
And all of you out there, you might want to get this book. It's Dancing on the Edge, and Russ wrote it with help from Bonnie, I'm sure, and he reads it. And it took him 6 weeks, so it's worth it to go get that book just so that he feels that he's satisfied with the hard work that he's put into this book. And it's a fascinating book.
Yeah, thank you. I worked, probably took over 25 years altogether to write it. I kept cutting stuff out and then adding stuff in. And then, of course, my wife, Bonnie, I would tell a story at some point, and she'd say, "Oh, we got to put that in the book." So,
Did she ever say, "No, you can't put that in"?
no, but my daughter did. My daughter Amber Rose, she went through the book and said, "No, Dad, you can't. You got to cut that out. Got to cut this. You can't tell that. Got to cut that out." It was all about girls that I knew.
Well, there's a lot of that in there still.
Yeah, but there would have been a lot more. But my daughter said, "You can't say that. Can't put that in anymore."
Well, she's a good girl, I guess.
Well, yeah, and she's also part of the new generation of actresses, and she's a writer and
a producer, and
So
it's
I
like
listened to
much
her.
more control than what you had, because you were being told as a contract player, you're doing this, you're doing that.
yeah.
Did you ever say, "I don't want to do this film"?
Oh yeah, a couple of times. There were films that I didn't want to do, but when you're under contract, you either have to do it or they put you on suspension, and you get suspended.
And then they don't pay you.
That's right. So that happened several. I actually turned down a movie I did called The Haunting And
That's a good film, Robert Wise.
yeah, it's a great film.
Yeah.
And I read it and I passed on it. I didn't like the character, and I was in England. I just finished doing a movie in the south of France, and Bob Wise sent me the script, and I read it and just didn't like my part in it in the Haunting. So I turned it down, flew back to the States, and the studio said, either you do the movie or we're going to put you on suspension. So suddenly I said, well, I'll read it again.
Maybe I'll change my mind.
I read it again and decided to do it. And then I did a couple of extra things in it that I made up where I was coming down the stairs and I sort of, and it was wiggling like that. So I jumped off the stairs, and so I did some things that were mine that I really liked. And ended up really liking the film.
That's good.
I thought it was.
Well, it's been exciting having you here with us today, Russ.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the interview.
Please join me again.
Okay.
And thanks for joining me this time, and thank you all out there for watching A Word on Westerns.
American buffalo once roamed the western plains by the million, till it came into the gun sights of the men who hunted it for profit. MGM's unique story of these pioneer hunters is told through the strange partnership of two men. Strong, savage Charlie Gilson, played by Robert Taylor. Strong, gentle Sandy McKenzie, played by Stewart Granger.
I changed my mind, mister. You want to go slaughtering buffalo, you go ahead. Me, I want to get the stink of them out of my insides. I'm fed up on killing. Seems like that's all I've ever known since I was a kid. Killing one kind or another.
There ain't nothing wrong with that. Killing's natural.
Not to me, it ain't.
Their fantastic, colorful story discloses a side of the American West never before filmed, full of excitement and danger. In brilliant Eastman color, photographed at great risk in its actual locale, the Black Hills of South Dakota. Unique, too, is the honesty of the portrayals. Russ Tamblyn as the appealing red-headed half-breed. Lloyd Nolan as the tough, humorous buffalo skinner.
Mr. Charlie, he sure hates the Indian, don't he?
Well, why not? See, the Injun don't eat with no fork, same as Charlie. Injun treats his women free and easy, same as Charlie. Injun blows his nose with his fingers, same as Charlie. Now, you see, Charlie don't like himself so much, so he don't like the Injun any better. Seems fair enough, don't it, son?
Debra Paget is the lovely, captive Indian girl. Soft-spoken, desirable.
That baby ain't yourn, is it?
His mother was killed.
The child got anybody? Anybody close, I mean?
The baby belongs to all people.
Ain't that a fact, though?
Yes, these hard men could display warm tenderness as well as cold steel.
Thought I told you to put that gun away.
I could shoot out both your eyes before you took another step.
Sure, you'd kill me, Charlie. But while you're doing it, I'd gut you from belly to brisket.
Humorous, human, yet tough as nails. The Last Hunt is a picture that pulls no punches.
Thanks for watching the show. I'm RJ Word. You already know my dad, Rob, because you were just watching an episode and you stuck around.
And you know what's interesting is I'm sure you see RJ's name in the credits all the time. Well, he and I now are going to do something together where you can see both of us instead of...
Well, actually...
You can't see either one of us.
You can't see either of us. It's a podcast.
But you'll hear him.
Exactly.
Podcast, it's new for me, but I'm excited about it. We're going to be having a lot of interviews with Western personalities like we've been doing for the past 11 years right here on A Word on Westerns. But now it's A Word on Westerns podcast.
You know, that's more than a third of my life. We've been doing this show for more than a third of my life.
He was in high school when we started at the Autry in 2013, and he used to skip class to come and work as a PA, and now he's bossing me around. Can you believe that?
He was a cool dad, and he takes instruction very well. I'm very proud of him. But our podcast is every Monday.
Every Monday a new one drops. Isn't it up all the time then, and you can access it anytime?
You can access it anytime wherever you find your podcasts or on our new channel, A Word on Westerns podcast.
Sounds good to me.
The links are... I'm going to put it over his face.
He did graduate, too.
Click here.